Hey guys, in this video, we're going to be talking about our real estate agents fueling the economic collapse to come.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Buzz, Coffee and Real Estate. And we're jumping into a pretty weighty topic, which is, are real estate agents, the real estate industry, fueling what we see as a future economic collapse? And we say an economic collapse because, you know, economic collapse is all over the web. It might not be a collapse. It may be a major correction. It's going to be a collapse in some people's lives. Okay, it's going to be a catastrophe in many people's lives. So is it going to be across the board, worldwide, nationwide? No one knows. But it's going to be horrible for some people. And that's really what we wanted to jump into today.
That's right. Well,
So
I think the other second part of that is it's going to hit certain people at certain times and certain time frames.
yeah.
I don't think it's going to be like immediate hit here and immediate hit there, but you're going to see it. And we always see this with real estate, is that we're kind of the last thing that gets hit on the back end. But there's going to be other elements there of, you know, how much debt loads and how much things are we carrying.
Right, absolutely. So before we do any of that, we're going to be talking about some big numbers. We're going to be using the word trillion, okay? The word trillion, let's talk about, I want myself to even understand how much this is, okay? So a trillion is 1,000 has 3 zeros. A million is 1,000 thousands. A billion is a million thousands.
Oh gosh.
Okay? And a trillion is a million millions. So let's say you were a millionaire and you got a million millionaires together who all worth $1 million. Now you're finally at 1 trillion. 1 trillion. Okay? What are we talking, like 20 stadiums full of 1 millionaires, and we finally get to a trillion. That's 1 trillion.
Wow.
Okay, so let me give you some stats here. We just a few days ago hit $1 trillion in cumulative credit card debt in America.
Just credit card debt.
Just credit card debt. It's never happened before. Okay? 1 trillion. That's the equivalent of about $4,000 for every adult in the U.S.
Wow.
Okay?
And then 18 and older?
18 and older.
Wow.
And that's what, at 23 to 28% interest rates probably, okay? So that's what the average U.S. American is burdened with, a bowling ball of credit card debt.
Wow.
That just takes months and months and years. It's just revolving. Okay, that's average. In addition to that, we have $12 trillion of mortgage debt nationwide.
Wow, so nobody owns anything.
Right, nobody owns anything, okay? In addition to that, about $1.5 trillion, a little over 1.5 trillion in car loans,
Golly.
1.75 trillion in student loan debt.
Wow.
Okay? So let's say that we were going to begin paying off $1 every second. Let's say we had a $1 trillion debt of credit cards, okay? And let's say, hypothetically, that we could move to a 0% interest. And okay, how quickly could we pay this off? We're going to pay off $1 every second of this credit card debt. $1 a second. That's cool. That's moving pretty fast.
$60 every minute.
$60 a minute. What, $3,600 an hour? That feels pretty amazing. $3,600 an hour of credit card debt.
Until you realize how long it's going to take.
You know how many years it would take? I'm going to take a guess.
Oh, gosh. 30 years?
31,000 years.
31,000?
31,000 years if you were able to pay off your credit card debt at $3,600 an hour as a nation. 31,000 years.
Wow.
31,000 years. Much longer than all of human history. So, we're talking huge numbers here.
Wow.
And I guess I'm just trying to, it's easy to hear in the news, oh, 8 trillion, all the debt ceiling was just raised by whatever it was. I don't even keep up with it. But I just want you to understand that your personal finances is what really is important. And it's very easy for the real estate industry, the sales industry, the advertising industry, but we're in real estate, to stoke the fires of discontent. Because to me, when I hear $1 trillion in credit card debt, what I hear is $1 trillion of discontentment. I hear $1.5 trillion of discontented car. I'm discontent with my car, so I'm going to get a bigger, nicer, better car. I know when I worked in car sales for a year right out of college, we'd have people that owed $20,000 or $30,000 on their car. They would come in and they would trade in that car, buy another car, and they would stick all of the debt they had left onto the new car. So now they're buying, let's say, an $80,000 car, but they owe $105,000 on an $80,000 car because they've rolled debt over. So it's just this picture of discontentment. And I know that we have all of this stuff in the market with inflation, but I want to ask you just what you've seen in your lifetime of something that I think is not talked about enough, which is the rising expectations of what our generation expects to be able to have versus, let's say, our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think it's a twofold question. I remember as a kid, and I was wanting to buy my first house, and we paid, I think, $141,000 for our first house.
Okay.
And I remember...
What, 15-ish years ago, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Okay. I remember having a conversation with my parents and them saying, well, everybody wants what their parents have when they first get their first house. And I mean, I'm totally guilty of that. And I know that because we've helped so many new home buyers, it's the same thing. It's like, like their first purchase is, let me buy the biggest TV. Yeah. Let me get brand new furniture. Yeah. Let me have, this amazing whatever. Right. There's always something. There's always the desire to fill the house. Yeah. So like people go into it, I think a lot of times, and we went into it with this mindset of, I'm going to buy this house and then I'm going to buy all this stuff for it. Because we did. We went to Rooms to Go or wherever, and we immediately got a credit card, immediately bought all the furniture for the house, new bedroom suite, new dining room, new living room.
Because you can't keep the old grungy furniture from the apartment if you're moving into a nice brand new house.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you have this mindset of, I have to do better than the average bear, if that makes sense. And so I know for me, and this has probably been the biggest challenge, is I see Romans 12. I see it conforming to the world's ways. Yeah. And so we do that so well that we don't even realize that we do it. It's like, I need to have this thing. Yeah. And so, it's like, I remember this. I remember those moments where it's like, I buy my house, and then, as soon as you buy something new or whatever, it's like, oh, well, I need to have a party. I need to have a bragging party of all the things that we have now, or and you don't think that logically, but you're like, oh, we just got brand new furniture. We should have a bunch of people over,
and cook out steaks.
That's exactly right. And and that is exactly where the $1 trillion worth of debt comes from. Is I'm going to buy this, and then I'm going to buy this. Well, I need a new grill. Well, now I need a bigger TV than what I had before. Yeah. It's always a one-up thing. And, it's so easy right now to do it. I mean, I give you an example. I was telling Candace before we started, is I went to get a gas card at a retailer. Yeah. Because it was, they give you 10 cents off a gallon or whatever. Yeah, yeah. They gave me $18,000 on a gas card.
Like a credit limit?
On a credit limit.
Oh, my word.
It's like, why do you need $18,000 for anything on a credit card? But and that was I think the first time they gave me $15,000, and then a year later they upped it, and I didn't ask them to do that. I didn't ask for that. They just did it. And so there's this element of, well, if they say I can have it, then I must be able to afford it. Right. And it's the same thing with your house. It's the same thing with your car. I mean, you think about it. It's like you go to the dealership and you say, well, what can I afford? Yeah. You don't say, what should I pay? Right. You don't say, well, I don't want to pay more than $200. Well, $200 isn't going to get you very far, son. Right. You need $400. Right. And we're guilty of that. We did the same thing. Our first car payment, I think, was $200. And then the last time that we bought a car, it was $665. Yeah. And now I'm like, get me out of here. I don't need this giant payment. Yeah. And so I'm feeling some of that pain. I'm a big part of that $1 trillion. But as I'm learning to change the way I think about stuff. What do I really need,
Yeah.
and what do I really want?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between those two, and I mean, we have 5 kids, and we've got, you know, a nice home and so forth, but it's in that. It's like I can get some of this stuff done, but at what cost?
Yeah.
You know, what's it going to hurt me to do it? And so I think that's the same thing when we go into a real estate transaction and we're talking to a family and we're going through that process of, you know, how much can I afford? It always comes down to the pre-approval letter. It never is less than the pre-approval letter. It's always, well, I'm approved for $350,000. And then what they'll say after that is, but I think there's probably a little more wiggle room in there. Every time. I have not met somebody ever in real estate where they got a $350,000 pre-approval letter and they didn't either hit that or go above it.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
Never.
and I mean, you know, we can be guilty of this. We can be
100%.
guilty of fueling that because, you know, the real estate industry, we make money when you buy a house or sell a house.
And for the dollar amount being higher.
And for the dollar amount being higher, right? I mean, and we've batted back and forth. Like, how could we figure out a better way of even earning our money, right?
Yeah.
That it not be based on the dollar amount.
Yeah.
And just understand there's some smart minds out there trying to figure that out, because if you think to yourself like, wait a minute, he gets paid more when he helps me buy a $300,000 house than if he helps me buy a $250,000 house. That doesn't feel quite right. The answer is, you're right. It doesn't feel quite right. It's exactly right. And that's a big part of the tension that we have in this industry is, how can we protect, guide, counsel instead of just, hey, don't you want a bigger kitchen than this? You said you could do 3 or 4 bedrooms, but I'm going to send you all 4-bedroom houses instead of 3-bedroom houses. I'm trying to like push you right up against that pre-approval limit.
That's right.
I mean,
I know I'm guilty of that. Somebody would say to me, what's the price point?
Yeah.
Right? I won't say it's the first question, but a lot of times the first question is, well, what are you approved for?
Sure.
Well, they always say the max amount.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, when I set a search up, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to set it for the max, but it's just, if you tell me 350, then I'm going to start your range from 100,000 to 350.
Yep.
And anything in between.
Right.
And so it's the same thing. It's like, well, should I do it for less than that? But if I do it for less than that, then I get a phone call.
Yeah.
I'm approved for 350. You know, so it's a
Sure. Part of it is
turmoil.
is on us.
Yeah.
We want to be educating, we want to be counseling, but again, we get to present options.
That's right.
The consumer gets to decide, and the very fact that we're even calling them a consumer is a horrible mindset, right? They're a human being, they are a citizen, they are a producer, they are a, you know, there's so many other ways. But again, our economic terminology, we're going to label your identity as somebody who buys stuff and uses it up, and then buys more stuff and then uses it up. I mean, all of our economic theory in high school teaches you that you need to have ever-growing demand so that people will have places to work in factories that take care of the ever-growing demand and all of that. But I mean, it's creating crisis in our first world nations all across, where you have these huge swings of greed and fear. And right now we're in I would say, a greed swing.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had certainly corrections and the interest rates have gone up and all of that, but I mean, when the average sale price of a home in America is $416,000, and our families, for the most part, are smaller than they were 30 or 50 or 70 years ago. But now we just can't live without our 2.5 baths.
Yeah.
You know, where my
4,000 square foot.
Yeah, I mean, my grandparents lived in a 1-bath house much of their marriage. My great-grandparents lived in a 1-bath house their entire marriage.
Wow.
Now we can't even think about that.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, historically, all through time in America, and certainly in most other parts of the world, kids share bedrooms.
Yep.
And they don't have their own bathroom.
Yeah.
But,
very true.
you know, hey, the rising cost of expectations, I need to not only have what my parents had, even though they're 25, 30 years older than I, but I want the cars and the houses that they have now, but I want them now, right? It took them to their mid-50s to be able to afford these. Yeah. And I'm in my mid-20s, but yeah, I got this great job, they approved me, so I'm going to go ahead and buy a $474,000 house as my first-time home buy. And we can throw big numbers, and maybe you're watching this and you say, well, I would never do that. Yeah, but are you purchasing everything that you can possibly afford, or are you leaving margin in there?
That's very true.
And we've both been guilty of this, of there's just no margin. And so I think maybe that problem, let's communicate the problem. Let's do it. This is a 2-part series.
Yes.
Okay,
definitely.
so let's jump in. We're going to do part 2 where we really talk about a little bit of the difference in what could we even do differently.
Yeah.
But I just wanted you to know that it's a huge problem in America. It's a freight train. If it's not heading for a national apocalyptic cliff, which I don't necessarily think that it is in that way, it is headed for many households. They're going to drive the train right off a cliff.
Oh, 100%.
And we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, but our industry as a whole, I'll confess that we're part of the problem.
Oh, 100.
Last story before I want you to tell that story of that buyer that was looking at something she couldn't afford.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I got one quick one, and we'll kind of wrap this episode up.
Sure. Yeah. So I had this buyer. They told me initially, we ended up selling their home, and they were buying a new home. And when we, approached the thing, I need to be at this payment.
Okay.
Was the conversation.
Yep.
It's like, okay. I mean, it's gonna be tight to keep you at that payment because houses are more expensive than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so their house is under contract. We're moving forward. It's like, all right, let's find the next house. All right, cool. We go to get the next house.
Well, she was also small town.
Yes.
And wanting to move to a larger town.
Town.
Even the same house that she sold, if she were to go get that exact same house somewhere else, it was going to be more expensive.
Oh yeah, $50,000 at the minimum.
Yeah.
So she says, all right, let's start looking. I said, all right, cool. So we start looking. We hit a couple of houses. There's of course desire for certain things.
Sure.
The house she came from, she bought brand new, so she was used to kind of that. This is my house. Nobody else has lived in it. All that. So we start looking at houses that are, of course, let's say used. They've been lived in.
Yeah.
And we hit, I don't know, 5 or 6 houses, something like that. We look at all of them. She's like, I hate all these. These are terrible. I don't want this. And of course, then she starts looking outside of that scope, right? Let's not look at price. Let's look at what I want. And so I didn't even know it, but this person had driven a couple hours to another town and was looking at a new construction. The new construction was 100 and some thousand more than what we'd originally talked about. Falls in love. This is the house for me. I love it. It's amazing. I got to have it. All the things. Let's talk with a lender.
Yeah.
Okay, we can approve you.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
We can approve you. You can do it. All the things, right? But your payment's going to be double, if not a little more than maybe 2.5 what we originally had talked about. So let's just say, I'm going to throw a random number. Let's say it's $1,000 a month payment. This payment's $2,500 a month.
Oh, my
Right.
word.
So you go from $1,000 to $2,500.
Yeah.
All in the name of, well, I'm going to sell my house because I'm going to have equity and it'll make my life easier, to now your life is now harder. And so goes under contract. I want to do this. This is what we're doing. All right, cool. It's fine. I mean, you're the client.
Sure.
I'm not one way or the other pushing you, but that's what you want to do. We'll do that. So they write the contract up. Everything gets signed. Everything goes through. 3 or 4 days later, she calls me. She's like, I need to back out. I cannot afford this. This is not wisdom. This is not a smart idea. We just need to cancel. Well, you put down money, due diligence, or earnest, or a builder deposit, whatever the case may be. You lose that money. So
But probably better that she realized it 4 days in instead of closing on it and being stuck with the payment.
Exactly. I would rather lose a couple, some money. I'd rather lose some money than to turn around and be indebted to, enslaved to, I'll say, to this house and the things with it.
Yeah. I talking about how realtors cultivate that discontent. I talked with a realtor right when I started my career, and she said, I'll actually call up past clients who haven't called me. They're not home shopping.
Yeah.
I'll call them up and say, hey, I found the next house for you. You want to go see it? Let me send it to you.
Wow.
Stroking discontent.
Yes.
Just like, okay, here's a little, I'm content in my home. oh, now I talked with, Jane Doe, and now I'm not so content because she says that I really need to look at this other house. And
looks like an apple in the garden.
oh gosh. So anyway, that's the problem. It's the real estate problem that is, cultivating a problem that's in man's heart. And we're just in a very rich nation that we can actually, we can go after a lot of those things. So stick around for part 2.
Yeah.
We're going to hopefully talk a little more hope on at least giving someone a path out of the problem that we're in at the beginning. Maybe we can at least point you in the right direction.
That's right.
So I think that just about wraps it up for this one.
Yeah. If you guys will subscribe to our channel, leave us some comments on this commentary, because this is, I'm sure there's going to be some wonderful comments that come from this conversation.
Yeah.
But yes, please leave your comments. Good, bad, and the ugly. I don't really care. I'd love to hear what you got to think about it. Share this with somebody that, maybe they need the wake-up call. But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.
Okay.